Ancient Egyptian law has a longer history than that of any other civilization, developing from the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under King Menes in 2925 BC all the way to the Roman occupation in 30 BC, and much of their legal tradition has been passed on to the Western legal system. To explore many aspects of Egyptian court, let's go back to spend 3 days in 716 BC. This was the last full year in which major law-giving pharaoh Bokhorus was in power, and many of his added proceedings are what passed on to later society. There are no recorded surviving set of laws, but because of each case being heavily documented by scribes, we know much of the standards set in this time. We start our first day with a normal Egyptian family. The mother is called Merenith, the father Thamos, and they have many children together. There is, though, one issue. Merenith has just committed infanticide in killing their youngest daughter during a fit of passion. Thamos will now create his suit against her to prove her guilty in court. Well, it wasn't called that. Each town had a court of sorts, made up of a group of appointed magistrates. This lower court was called Kenbet. The magistrates, while dealing with legal proceeding, were called the Saru, and in some cases, shown with our Kenbet, some Saru could even be women. This style of court could easily be compared to today's juries, which show the opinions and wisdom of ordinary people. The rule of the Kenbet would be based partially on documents brought by the plaintiff and defendant, and would be written out and referred to throughout the proceedings. In this day, there were no lawyers to use masterful tactics to snare the vote of the jury. Instead, the people involved advocated for themselves. Luckily for this couple, they are not currently on the best of terms and will have no issues finding the fire to plead their case. Thamos goes up to speak first as he must introduce his plea, but there is one thing left to do before he can speak. Because the system is based off the teachings of Goddess and Truth, Justice, and Harmony, Ma'at, legal proceedings were somewhat of a sacred occurrence. Civilians would only dare present a case if they knew it would be the greater good and create better harmony in the universe. Suspects were guilty until proven otherwise, and therefore false charges disgraced innocent people, not to mention the Saru and Ma'at. So, obviously, Thamos must be beaten before speaking. Witnesses were often beaten to make sure they were telling the truth. Comparative to being under oath, this is slightly more extreme, but began the prevention of defamation of innocent people. It is proven that he has good intentions, so he may speak. When it is Merenith's turn, she is overcome with guilt and pleads guilty. For her honesty, she asks only that she gets a lesser sentence, a practice that is still in use today. The Saru feel gratefully for her, but also know the importance of enforcing laws, and therefore give unto her the sentence described for infanticide of this type. For the next 3 days and nights she must hold the dead child's body to greater understand the severity of her crime. Let's hope after this she never does it again. Thamos feels betrayed by the woman he loved, and will likely be back to file for a divorce. Each Kenbet took only one case per day, and with a job well done it is time for our Saru to return back home. Tusseret and Mermut are at an end, and Tusseret is filing for divorce. There are many instances documented in which women can work against their fathers and husbands in legal proceedings, as the laws for the Egyptian people wish to encompass all people. Tusseret's claim is of infidelity, which was an extreme offense in ancient Egypt. A large emphasis was put on the importance of family as a structure of society, and so punishments for straying from this nuclear norm could be severe. One major signifier of inequality shown through surviving documents is the use of the death penalty on unfaithful wives and not the male counterpart. Both plead to the jury, but Merimut must remember to be mindful of his wife. For large claims such as this, when proven guilty, the plaintiff holds the power to lower the sentence suggested by the Saru. Things are not looking great for Merimut, but they are about to get much worse. Tusseret has brought a witness, more specifically, Ineski, the younger girl whom Merimut has committed this crime with. More specifically, the younger girl whom Merimut had assaulted. Scared, Merimut attempts to refute their case, but his evidence is lacking in comparison. The Saru decrees him to be guilty, but he will not roll over so easily. His punishments are to be amputation of his feet for infidelity and castration for rape. Determined to avoid his fate, he makes it his mission to prove himself innocent. Nefertiti, Sobekotep, and Thutmose come to seek assistance from the Kenbet with the matter of their deceased father's property. Rather helpfully, he has left behind a special legal document which tells very specifically how his property should be passed down, but there is someone missing. Sobekotep is infuriated that he is not his father's main successor, as the oldest of the three, and son. The law of succession states that he should be passed the entirety of his father's land, but this document, the first example of a type of will, overrules. His main source of pain is not from his sister getting the brunt of it all, but Thutmose. You see, Thutmose is a slave, a man once owned by his father and meant to now be owned by him. The exchange and rental of slaves was a sales agreement like any other, but in cases in which they were involved as a party, they would be treated like any other Egyptian citizen. The father's will, giving land to his favorite slave, is perfectly viable, and frees Thutmose from much of his service. That's what Sebekotep gets for being a bad son to his father. Can't say he didn't have it coming. Merimut, unsatisfied with the ruling of the Khemba, has appealed to a higher court. He has come to the Jajat to speak directly to the vizier, the legal right hand of the pharaoh. This is a position similar to a supreme judge in modern Western society. He worked on a first-come, first-served basis, and therefore Merimut worked very early this morning to get a hearing. Unlike lower courts, the vizier's decision was final, and he could lift or loosen placed charges, but if he came to the same conclusion as the lower court, punishments would be increased. Stakes are high for Merimut. Just like at the Kenbet, all three tell their side of the story, and it is up to the vizier to decide. For the greatest criminals, the vizier would consult the pharaoh for final judgment and insight, but he knows what to do here. Merimut is found guilty on both charges, and his sentence is heightened. He now faces castration, followed by death by crocodiles in the morning. As the sun sets on our third and final day in Egypt, Merimut sees the stars for the last time as Merenith holds her child for the last time. Egyptian law for its time was admirable in its support of human rights, made possible by many great leaders. Our pharaoh in this journey, Bokharis, did work to promote individual rights by changing laws relating to the movement of property, as shown with Sobekotep's case, suppressing imprisonment for debt, and much more. In 6th century BC, Greek lawgiver Solon visited Egypt. Impressed by the level of democracy, he adapted many aspects of Egyptian law to create a better judiciary system for Athens. Greek law was heavily influenced by this up until the end of the Hellenistic period, in around 30 BC. The Roman Empire expanded to take over both Egypt and Greece. Adopting Greek as the language of government, the Romans used much of Greek law in their imperial law used throughout the empire. The effects of this massive spread of originally Egyptian laws can be felt even in the American Declaration of Independence, taken from the Roman Volente non fit injuria. The famous phrase of all men are created equal, the base idea of responsibility and respect where it is due, is derived from Egyptian culture and law. Aspects of Egyptian law slipped through the cracks of time, disguised in masks of Greek and Roman documentation, affecting modern court and democracy. These ancient society's contributions are more than generous if one simply gives our history a closer look.